Today, we're diving into a really fascinating news story about osteoarthritis. You know, that condition that affects millions of people. We're going to explore a surprising, and I mean really surprising link that researchers are uncovering between the health of our gut and the pain in our joints. For decades, the story we've all been told is that aching joints are just wear and tear, right? An unavoidable part of getting older. But what if that's only a tiny piece of the puzzle? What if the real root cause is way more complex and starts somewhere you would never, ever expect? Because that's exactly what the science is pointing to now. Researchers are digging up critical clues to joint health, not in our bones or cartilage, but deep inside our bodies, in the wild, bustling ecosystem of our gut. Okay, let's get into this. Now, to really appreciate how big a shift this is, we first have to look at the traditional view of osteoarthritis, or OA for short. So OA isn't just about cartilage wearing down like an old tire. It's a disease of the entire joint. Yeah, the cartilage breakdown is part of it, for sure, but it also involves inflammation of the joint lining. That's the synovium, and even changes to the bone underneath. It's a much more active, complex disease process than we used to think. And the scale of this is just staggering. Osteoarthritis may affect more than 7% of the entire global population. We're talking hundreds of millions of people worldwide dealing with pain and disability. So you can see why finding a completely new angle on this is a really, really big deal. So if the old story isn't the full picture, what's the new one? Well, we're now entering a whole new chapter in OA research, one that connects our joints all the way to our digestive system. And the central idea here is something called the gut-joint axis. Basically, this is the concept that the trillions of tiny microbes living in our gut, that's our microbiome, can directly influence what's happening in our joints. They do it through this complex network of chemical signals, like a biological superhighway involving our metabolism and our immune system. It sounds a little bit like science fiction, doesn't it? I mean, how on earth can bacteria way down in your colon have any say over the health of your knees or your hips? Well, it turns out they send out messengers, and this is where the story gets really good. To make sense of all this, let's just break it down into a simple story. The good guys versus the bad guys, all playing out inside our gut. Let's start with the villain's plot. It all begins when our gut microbiome gets thrown out of balance. That's called dysbiosis. This can make the intestinal wall leaky. And when that happens, inflammatory molecules from certain bacteria, like this one here called LPS, can actually escape into the bloodstream. From there, they travel through the body, find their way to our joints, and trigger this whole inflammatory cascade that leads to cartilage destruction. But there are heroes in this story too. A healthy, balanced gut does the complete opposite. The good bacteria, they feast on things like dietary fiber and produce these amazing beneficial compounds called short-chain fatty acids, or SCFAs. Think of these as your body's own built-in anti-inflammatory crew. They help keep that gut wall strong and sealed, and they send out protective signals that calm inflammation and support healthy cartilage in our joints. So really, it all comes down to the balance of these messengers. On one side, you have the good guys, like those SCFAs that protect us. And on the other, you have the main bad guy, the endotoxin LPS, which is just driving that inflammation and damage. And you know, scientists are actually starting to put names to these phases. In people with OA, they often see fewer of the protective, fiber-loving bacteria, like Faecalibacterium and Roseburia. And at the exact same time, there's often an increase in more problematic bacteria, like Streptococcus, which has even been linked to people reporting higher levels of pain. Now, this isn't just a cool theory. There's a growing mountain of research that's providing some really solid evidence for this gut-joint connection. So, human studies are showing these really consistent patterns. For example, one big study found that having more of that bacteria, Streptococcus, in the gut was directly linked to higher pain scores in patients. That's a direct clinical link between a specific bug and a person's actual real-world symptoms. But you know, seeing a pattern isn't the same as proving cause and effect. So to really nail it down, scientists turned to some clever experiments with mice. They took gut microbes from human donors who had OA and transplanted them into mice that had no gut bacteria at all. And the result? The mice that got the microbes from the OA donors developed much more severe arthritis. That's some pretty powerful evidence that the microbiome itself can actually drive the disease. All this evidence has naturally led researchers to focus on diet because what we eat is one of the most powerful tools we have to shape our microbiome. There are studies on probiotics, on high-fiber prebiotics, and even on dietary patterns like the Mediterranean diet, and they've all shown the potential to improve OA symptoms by helping create a healthier gut ecosystem. So, what does this all mean for the future of treating osteoarthritis? Well, the implications are pretty transformative, actually. We're looking at a future that moves way beyond just managing pain. This research is opening the door to totally new therapies. Things like targeted probiotics with specific beneficial strains, special prebiotic fibers designed to feed our protective bacteria, and personalized diet plans aimed at rebalancing the gut to cool down that joint inflammation. However, and this is a really critical piece of the puzzle, it is not a one-size-fits-all situation. The research makes it very clear that how a person responds to any of these things is super personalized. It all depends on the microbiome they start with, their diet, their genetics, their whole health picture. And that's really the next great challenge for researchers to figure out. This quote from the research really just captures the whole paradigm shift we've been talking about. It's a complete reframing of the disease. Osteoarthritis is not just a mechanical problem. It is a systemic one with deep, deep roots in the health of our gut. And that leaves us with a pretty fascinating final thought, doesn't it? We might be moving toward a world where treating arthritis doesn't start with an injection in the knee, but with a deep dive into your unique gut microbiome, leading to a treatment plan that's tailored specifically for you. The future of joint health might just be found in the gut.